Okay, so we are back. I'm here to talk to you about the last reflex, which is a somatic reflex. And if you remember, the somatic reflexes involve skeletal muscles. The skeletal muscle is the effector for a somatic reflex. And while we do not have conscious control of somatic reflexes, we may in fact have conscious awareness, which is one of the ways in which they differ from autonomic reflexes. And there's only two types of somatic reflexes that I'm going to talk to you about, although I encourage you to look up more on your own because I find them fascinating, and I think you will too. And those two are the stretch reflex and the flexor or withdrawal reflex. So first, the stretch reflex is the one that your doctor tests, so you may be familiar with this when they hit you with that little mallet at the knee and your leg kicks out. And if you ever wondered why that is, it's because of the stretch reflex. And muscles, when they are stretched too quickly and too much, they fight back, they contract to prevent damage to themselves, because you don't want a muscle to be stretched too fast and too far, because that could permanently damage the muscle. So what happens with the knee jerk, or the patellar tendon reflex, as it is called, is that there are stretch receptors in your patellar tendon, and when they sense a stretch, such as getting hit in the knee with that little mallet, they send a signal back up through an afferent nerve to your spinal cord, and then there's an integrating center there, and then there's a signal sent via an efferent nerve back down to your leg. And I do have a figure for this. This is from Saladin again, and this is figure 1322. So, again, you have this rapid stretch going on in the patellar tendon, and this signal being sent via the afferent nerve up into the integrating center in the spinal cord. And then you have the efferent nerve sending a signal back down, and in this case it's to the quadriceps femoris muscle. And so an EPSP is sent to the quadriceps femoris muscle. It is excited, it is depolarized, and it is encouraged to contract, and that's why your knee extends, because the quads are knee extenders. And what I think is really fascinating about this reflex is not so much that first part, but it's the second part here. Notice that the same reflex arc includes an efferent nerve to go down not to the quads but to the hamstrings. Because the hamstrings, if you remember, they are knee flexors. They are antagonists to knee extenders like the quadriceps femoris. And they would cause, if they contracted, they would cause the knee to flex. They would cause, the leg to bend. And that's the opposite of what the quadriceps femoris wants, really, because it needs to contract to protect itself from this perceived stretch. So what happens is, while the EPSP is sent to the quadriceps femoris to get it to contract, an IPSP, an inhibitory postsynaptic potential, is sent to the hamstrings, and that encourages them to stay relaxed, because we don't want these antagonists interfering with the knee jerk reflex. So I find that pretty fascinating, that the same reflex arc encourages one muscle group rather, to contract, and then it tells the other to not contract because it doesn't want the antagonist muscle group to interfere. So that is the stretch reflex, or one example of it. And the second I'd like to talk to you about is the flexor reflex, or the withdrawal reflex. And this is a pretty familiar one too. If you think of a reflex, a lot of people do tend to think of this, such as when you, the classic example, put your hand on a hot stove, not realizing it's hot, and then before you even are aware of the pain, your arm jerks back, right? Your arm flexes and brings it closer to your body. And this is another reflex to protect you. It's to protect you from any further injury, to protect you from pain. And it's essential for survival. If you think about it, it's a pretty basic reflex to withdraw from pain. And I'm going to use the example of stepping on a Lego, because I think this is a pretty universal, unpleasant experience. So, you're walking through your house and you step on a Lego, and before you are consciously aware of what's happening, because remember the cerebrum is not involved, there are pain receptors in your foot, and they send a signal up through afferent nerves to your spine. And there's an integrating center in your spine, and then a signal is sent back down through the efferent nerves, and this time it causes your hamstring muscles to contract and your quadriceps femoris to relax. Because this time, instead of the knee extending, you want it to flex. You want to withdraw that leg and bring it out of the area of danger. Because it could be something a lot more serious than a Lego, and you don't want your foot to be damaged any further. So again, you have this effector organ in your hamstrings muscle, and they are the ones that are receiving the EPSP. They are the ones that are excited, the ones that contract. Those are the agonist muscles. And then there's also an efferent nerve going to the quads. And now this time it's telling them don't do anything. It's giving them an IPSP and making them stay relaxed, because we don't want the leg to extend. We definitely don't want to continue encountering this thing that is hurting us. And so I think that's pretty amazing that our bodies they have this rudimentary reflex to protect us from danger or further danger or damage. And so that is reflexes for you, autonomic and somatic, just a few examples. And I encourage you to go look this up on your own, and I hope you find it as fascinating as I do. So, the last thing I want to mention is my sources. I looked at all 4 of Professor Houston's lectures on this topic, or listened to them rather, and then I also looked at the book by Saladin. Obviously, I showed you a few figures from that, and then I also used information and a figure from Rice University's website. So, I have my APA-style works cited page right here, and I will post a link to this on the video website too. So, thank you for watching.